When I made Fury, I didn't want to make everyone else's war movie.
It was going to be a very honest and unapologetic view of the war.
It is more brutal. I think it's something that we haven't been able to show on films before. It's more real to probably what it was like.
This film focuses so much on the psychological baggage, the accumulation of trauma, and these vets talked a lot about this, of the things you're witnessing on a daily basis, atrocities, horror, the maiming of your brothers, and the constant smell of death in the air. And from everyone I talked to and spoke with, and there's no way you're not walking out of that with some kind of psychological dent. Ideals are peaceful. History is violent.
War's a really bad thing. And anyone who's served in the military and gone down range and experienced hostile fire and lost a buddy in combat, or seen death, seen civilian deaths, knows that it's bad. This movie is about the effect of war on this tight-knit family that runs this tank. And to show what these men endure, when they punch in on the clock and go to work, what do they see? What do they do? And it's carnage, it's chaos, it's destruction. And so I have to show that. I have to depict that as a director. Otherwise, I'm only telling half the story. And you know, you have to decide these things. You take a .50 caliber machine gun. One of those rounds hits somebody, they explode like a water balloon. I don't think it's a good idea to show that. You know, the actual effects of rifle bullets and weapons are pretty catastrophic. You know, they'll take someone's limbs off. It's horrific things that these weapons do. It's, I think, important for the audience to get even just a small understanding of the hell that these men endured.
I'm gonna give up, I can't be here anymore. This ain't pretty, you know? This is what we do.
I remember my grandfather was in the First World War, and he wouldn't talk about what happened. And I think we're going to show things in this film that happened to people that made them not want to talk about it.
One of the things these tanks would do is they'd drive over a foxhole and then traverse left and right to collapse the foxhole and smother and kill and crush the soldier inside. Why shoot a guy if you can just run him over? So one of the gags we did was a German soldier getting run over by the tank, which wasn't uncommon. We dug a hole, put a foam pad in it, and ran the tank over a stunt guy. Another thing we did was we had a stunt guy in a foxhole, drove the tank right up to him, cut, good thing I called cut, switched him out with a dummy, and then, okay, action, let's go. Ran him over and popped his grape with a tank tread.
You got 12 o'clock, order, run them bastards over.
There's some brutal things that happen in the film. A lot of it's based on reports, eyewitness accounts, memoirs. These are all things that happened in the war. There's a shot of the tank running over a body in the mud. And it's actually an image I saw. I saw this image as a kid in a book, and it's a famous picture of the invasion of Russia by the German army. And as a metaphor for war and the callousness of it and how you don't matter and the machinery just moves forward, it really tells a story. It's a powerful, impactful image, and it's not there as a gratuitous thing to titillate the audience. It's there as a visual metaphor for what people are enduring in this war.
You know, in trying to figure out where we were gonna film a German World War II movie, you might not necessarily think England is the place, but for a whole host of reasons, it's been the ideal place. There's an amazing amount of assets, tanks, armored vehicles, both German and American. And then there's this beautiful northern light.
England has a temperate climate, so it was the best time that we were guaranteed at least snow as possible, but still get that wintry, cold feel. David, the director, made it very clear in my first meeting that this was a very real movie and was going to be all research-based, and I too felt the same way. You know, I didn't feel this movie was about design, it was about reproducing history. I was doing research for the battalion area, and I came across these pictures of men in deep mud up to their knees and struggling and pulling things through it, and heavy equipment in the mud. And I realized that really was the essence of that time of the war.
It was one of the most incredible movie sets I've seen. I've seen a few, and this one was staggering because when you stepped onto that set, it was 1945, and it was huge. And there was hundreds and hundreds of people in absolute period accurate wardrobe. There's vehicles there that have never been seen in a film. Smoke, debris, trash, detritus. We had live pigs, goats in cages. I mean, there was no detail too small. If you grabbed a piece of trash off the ground, it would be the correct piece of paper for what it was representing.
There was short periods of combat and then long hauls between them. And I realized that's where the men in that war were at. A lot of the day-to-day was through mud and drudge and cold. It was the worst winter in 50 years, I believe. And I really wanted just to portray that, and that's what triggered the look for me in the movie.
I went to the original sources. I went to period photographs. I had thousands of period pictures taken by the U.S. Army Signal Corps footage of the U.S. Army at these times. And when you look at specifically April 1945, the U.S. Army in Germany, you realize how eclectic it is. And it's a military that's been fighting since 1942. It's invaded Normandy. These guys have fought all the way across from Normandy for almost a year. And you see every uniform, every piece of equipment, it's this mix, it's a collage. And even a uniform, you have different models. You have this evolution in the cut and style, but even the same uniform could have 4 or 5 different colorways. And so one of the most important things for me was to represent the individuality of even the most anonymous soldier. So if you really study the film, almost nobody is wearing the same thing.
Most of the weapons you see in film are real weapons. People think that they're not. They're specially made blank firing weapons. We can't do that. We have to take the real thing and then we make it function on blanks. So we'll restrict the weapon, we will do certain modifications to it. It cannot then become something that's unlicensable. It's still a firearm. So when we issue these weapons to people every day, they have to sign for them before they go out. And we're responsible, as well as the person who's took them, to look after that weapon.
What you have to remember, sir, is your weapon number. So what we've got today is we've got someone from the core group who's just arrived. This gentleman should have a card on him. So we know by this card that he's in the core group and he's had weapons training. And now we can issue him a practical weapon. If he didn't have weapons training, he'd go to the vehicle over here and he'd be issued with a rubber weapon. The training that the extras went through was about a 6-day boot camp where we took them through their paces. One click down is fully automatic. All the way down is semi-automatic. We started off with physical exercise because if the guys can't keep up, they're not going to be able to carry the gun. So we did put them through a physical training scheme. Then we started to train them into the period. And then eventually they went over to the weapons training, where we took them through each weapon that they're possibly going to have on this film and let them fire the weapons. Weapons clear, sir. Good.
After we've trained all these people in the safety of the weapon, we'd like to be questioned. If I hand you a weapon and I tell you it's unloaded, I want you to ask me to prove it. So now we get into a system where we will always prove to the actor when we hand him the weapon that it's clear.
Weapons clear, magazine's empty. Lovely. Okay, have a good day.
So we like that a lot. You know, we like to see people showing you, not just saying, oh, don't worry, it isn't loaded, because it's always the unloaded gun that causes the accident.
We remove the tag from the weapon, which has its serial number on. We attach his card, which he's signed, hopefully. Yeah, he's signed, and that goes onto the rack. So then we go, if this weapon was found on set, we could instantly trace it back and give a name. We've got 350 people who will be armed today. The core group's 80. So 80 practical weapons go out, and then the remainder are rubber.
There's a lot of varieties of hand weapons in World War II, and your choice of weapon, I think, can also make a statement about your character. So you take War Daddy, for instance. He has a shoulder holster that he would have gotten made in Texas while he was on maneuvers down there in the South. And he has a 45 caliber revolver, which was really a cavalry weapon. You saw it in World War II, but it's again that idea, that legacy weapon. He's got the old school 6-shooter.
You are no goddamn good to me unless you can kill crowds. Put a big fat hole in his back. Put a big fat hole in his fucking back.
This is quite interesting because this would have been around in the First World War. You've got the 1911 coming in, so this is a choice by our actor to have an older style weapon. We were asked to do a thing called sweetheart grips, and these are a picture that is a memento to you, maybe your wife or girlfriend. I'm not sure if that's his girlfriend, but that probably is. And these were made with plexiglass. People in their spare time, if they had spare time, would kind of take a piece of broken aircraft plexiglass and shape it into the handle and then place the photo underneath.
He also has a captured German, it's called an STG-44, which is really the father of the AK-47. It's a German assault weapon, and it's something he would have taken off of a dead German. And it's a pretty scary weapon. 30-round clip, looks very modern.
This is a German weapon that was developed prior to 1944, at the end of the war. I personally, it's not my favorite weapon. I think it was a bit rushed in its design, but it's an amazing piece of equipment. I think given another 6 or 7 months, they would have come up with a perfect weapon.
You know, there's a saying that, other countries fight for their flag, Americans fight for souvenirs. You take Gordo, for instance, he has a captured German pistol in a German belt. Every little detail, no character detail was overlooked, even the weapons.
You from Missouri?
No. You from Chicago?
Nah, you from Arkansas, ain't you?
No, I'm from
Hey, hush up, man. Nobody gives a fuck where you from.
So developing the costumes for the principal actors, Brad Pitt is the tank commander. We put him in a first model tanker jacket with external patch pockets. We put him in a riding style breech, which is a trouser.
You take a look at Brad, and he represents the salty NCO who's been in the Army pre-war. The unit, it's really about the 66th Armored Regiment, which was the first U.S. Army unit to go tanks, but it was a cavalry unit prior to that.
Oh, I'll question him. Was ist deine Lieblingsfarbe? Ist ein guter Tänzer? Stehst auf dicke Weiber?
Get back!
And so he wears the M1937 pattern cavalry boots, which you would see a lot of tank commanders wear, a lot of saltier guys. It was a badge of sort of seniority for them to wear these things.
We tried to get into the character of him as being a guy who's been around the block. He's got a little bit older equipment. We made him very unique.
Boy, do you think Jesus loves Hitler?
Do I think Jesus loves Hitler? I'd assume so. Hitler said that Jesus in his heart got baptized to be saved. Ain't gonna save him from man's justice.
We went into Shia LaBeouf as a sort of a battle-hardened character also. He has a second model tanker jacket. He's very grubby. He's the gunner.
On the hill, don't you sing. I like it. I'll sing it if you don't do that. Please touch your mustache. Don't fucking touch your mustache. Brady.
We have John Bernthal. He's playing a guy called Kunas, and he's the loader. of the gun. He's like the workstation of the whole tank. He's a big man, he's a powerful guy, and his costume, we had him broken down to just wearing his coveralls and his thermal always pushed up. You know, he looks like he works on a train shoveling coal. His uniform's filthy because he would be working underneath the tank. He'd be always in the engine. He would be fixing tracks.
Can you fix it?
Yeah, why not? Está todo fregado, ¿no?
We have Michael Pena, who plays Gordo, and he originates from East LA. He's a Mexican guy, and he's the driver. Underneath his jacket, as a very subtle piece of his uniform, we give him an American Army issued camouflage shirt from World War II. These shirts are very unique because they were only issued to the 2nd Armored for the invasion of Normandy. But because the rest of the US Army weren't given the information that the American Army were actually wearing camouflage, there was a lot of cases of American troops firing on American troops because they thought they were SS troops who they knew were issued camouflage uniforms. So the unique aspect of Gordo's character is he retained his camouflage shirt, he cut the sleeves off it, he did some art on the back with Gordo and again the 2nd Armored, and he uses that kind of like as a body warmer. Then finally we have Norman, and Norman is played by Logan Lerman, and he is a new recruit who just came off a transport truck on his way to the front. So he basically is in brand new uniform.
How long you been in the Army?
8 weeks.
That's home.
Part of the wardrobe is a breakdown crew, and they're fabric artists, and they're just like an artist who paints on a canvas. The fabric artists, they paint on the fabric, and they'll make a brand new garment seem like it's had 1 year's worth of use, and it takes them like 3 hours to work on one item. They'll wear the collar down, they'll put rips in it, they'll do repairs on top of those rips, they'll fray the collars, they'll fray the cuffs, they'll just break down that uniform, and we'll turn it in from a brand new garment into something that looks like you found it in a dumpster. But that's the real kind of how a real soldier looks. He's only pristine for 1 day.
You hear that?
It's a goddamn SS battalion.
The modern combat look that we know today was really developed by the Germans, and so they have this vast variety of camouflage. If you look at German camouflage, you know, they probably lost the war because they had so many different kinds of uniforms, you know, maybe if they picked one.
And we meticulously copied the camouflage to the best of our ability. We copied the fabric, we copied the dyes and the print and the inks and the repeat length on the pattern. It's a very unique and different army than anyone's ever seen before.
MG Cooper, sprung auf! Marsch, marsch! Stellung!
Basically what I was doing, I was running them blokes through machine gun drills for the light machine gun for the German dismounted troops. They would have one of those MG groups in every group, i.e. section of 10 blokes. Yeah, and what we need to do is we need to replicate what they done, the drills on the gun, so when the blokes are in front of the camera and when people see it at home on the screen, they see a good representation of German machine gunners from World War II.
Clear the obstruction. Feed tray down, belt back on, top cover back down, carry on firing.
If you put that level of detail in it, that attention to detail will bring it home. Right, you've got to remember that World War II was a massive thing that took over the whole of the world, more or less.
Marsch, marsch! That means double time, move, come on!
And it wasn't easy to beat these people. If you replicate these people stupidly, you're not doing anyone any justice. Not the people that lost, but also the people that won. You had to be very good, yeah, to beat these people. Yeah, they was very well trained. They rolled most of Europe very quickly, and for a good 3 years, they was undefeated. It then took another 2 years to defeat them, yeah, with people fighting them from every angle. And I think if you can replicate that level of detail into film, it will ignite people's interest, and we'll see a good representation of what maybe their grandfathers had to go up against. You know, so I think it's a very good thing that they're going into that much detail.
Alles klar? Alles klar! Right, wait there, fellas.
Part of the beauty and the The pleasure of it is bringing those pieces to life. And we do that with the costuming, with the correct casting of extras, and just meticulous research and detail.
I got eyes on the town. We're ready to commence assault.
Baker 6 copies. Initiate your attack. Me and my
So
boys
the
will
tanks will roll in from this side, and so they can come around this corner, and this is the main view looking down the street. When I was laying this out, I was just making sure there's some great sort of hiding places for Germans and sort of tension builders. They don't actually get into fighting Germans until they're into the square, but it's all that tension building. The soldiers are hiding behind the tanks. There's these high entrances and doorways where people could jump out at any moment. And then I put these arches in here so that you could have a glimpse of the town square, so you can just look through. So it was an introduction to the town, so you weren't just coming in off hard corners and just you're suddenly in the town. So it was like a gentle introduction, but also give great moment where soldiers could be walking through the arches and the camera could be panning through, and it just adds depth and layers.
Hit him! Fuck you, Jerry!
And then also when you're in those arches, they frame the set and hide where we haven't built the roofs, so the director will take the opportunity to film scenes in there and where he can have soldiers chatting and see through, to the town beyond. So this is the entrance into the girls' apartment. They've seen a movement in the window, so they know it's this apartment, and they'll knock on this door, so it'll still feel dark and moody in this space. When they realize it's not Nazi soldiers in the room, I wanted to relieve the tension by making this a much more feminine and welcoming room.
Sit down. Thank you. I get asked, what was the most difficult scene to film while making Fury? And I'm supposed to say the tiger battle or something, but it was the apartment scene. We're warm and we're dry, and we got a roof over us, and we're not standing in mud, but it was one of the most intense on-set experiences I've ever had.
What's with your little white quiver? Don't worry about me. I'm a friend. He fuck you, he fuck me. That's how it works.
Anyone touches a girl, they get their teeth kicked in.
It's an interesting scene. It's about family, and I wanted it to be like a bad Thanksgiving dinner where your uncle has too many beers and starts spouting off and things just go to the dark side.
Let me just fix this for you real quick.
It's my favorite dramatic scene in the film. I mean, the acting's just incredible, and Brad's irritation is genuine. I don't think he was very pleased with anybody that day, and you can just see the pain in the guys, and like Shia, it's just, there's so much raw pain in those eyes, and it's all real. And John Bernthal just is magnificently horrible.
Sitting here playing house, a couple bitch crowds ain't gonna change a fucking thing.
Shut the fuck up.
Why should I shut up?
He's honest and believable and very human. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. It really is just this human moment in the middle of this machinery of war.
On white! Fire out that window!
One of the things I did in this film was I show tracers. Take a look at some actual military footage from, say, Iraq or Afghanistan or something like that. Military ammunition contains a phosphorus base, and which glows. It actually glows at the same color temperature as the sun. It's incredibly bright, and it's the way a machine gunner can walk his rounds on a target. Our side, the Americans, we used the red, pink tracers. The Germans would use green. Japanese would use purple or blue tracers. Each side had their own color so you can tell whose rounds are getting sent down range. So that way, if they're all the same color and you see tracers and you go, that's the enemy, you light them up and it's your buddy, you're going to have a bad day. That's sad face. So it's never really been depicted in a film, and it's never been depicted as a film this way. As a kid, I was always fascinated by the footage of the Corsairs fighting over the Pacific, and you would see that gun sight footage of these tracers, and they're so bright. And we did a lot of calculations. We did a lot of distance calculations. So it's something like 50 feet of tracer travel per frame, and then you have to grid all this out, give that to your special effects vendor, and plot these things out. And then you have to match all the color temperatures of the tracers, and you have to match the brightness levels. So what we thought would be a simple endeavor actually drove us nuts.
Let's light them up. Let's go. Let's clean it up.
It has the effect of when you can see the bullets coming at you, it makes it extra scary. The tank rounds also have tracer bases. I'm fighting cinematic convention here because audience haven't seen it. It's not part of the language of cinema. So it's something new for audiences. And I think people are smart. People like seeing things that are new and like seeing things that are different. We did a lot of work to get it right. A lot of the military guys who have seen the movie just kind of like nod their heads, yep, that's what it looks like.
Head up top of that hill near those trees. You got outpost guard.
Can I grab my canteen?
Yeah, you can grab your canteen.
And cut. Reset. All right.
Being a good director is really being a good manager. You know, you have a vision, you have ideas, and then you have to transmit them to your team, to your crew, and to your department heads. They're the ones who go out and source this stuff. I say, you know, hey, I'd love to get this asset on my set. They gotta go find it, they gotta go track it down. A lot of hands and a lot of great minds that went into this. You know, Andrew Menzies is a production designer. I mean, that town is really his creation. And Owen Thornton, the costume designer, you can't walk into a surplus store and find all these uniforms. There's a vast variety of uniforms. So source this stuff, get this stuff built. You know, the vehicles, getting those vehicles together was an incredible task. I don't think it's been done before. There's vehicles in this movie that have never been on film. I can only go so far. You know, I can go to a meeting and ask for stuff, and that's kind of what I do. But the people who really make it happen are my department heads. They did a fantastic job.